Daniel Handler, aka Lemony Snicket, speaking at the 2014 National Book Awards on November 19, 2014, in New York City. Photo, Robin Marchant, Getty Images. In 2013, children's book author Kate Messner found herself on a bus with Daniel Handler, better known as the author Lemony Snicket. They were both guests at the Rhode Island Children's Festival of Books and Authors, riding the bus provided by the organizers to transport authors to the site. In other words, this was a working space filled with professionals. Handler, according to a post written by Messner, overheard her talking to a fellow author about being from the Midwest, and shouted, "Are you a virgin, too?" in the lobby of a hotel. Later, as authors and spouses were being introduced to each other before dinner, Handler joked, "These children's book events always turn into orgies." Over the past few weeks, a number of women who work in children's literature have described encounters in which Handler made inappropriate sexual comments in front of and about them. They are all quick to distinguish his behavior from more overtly predatory conduct, but still talk about being made to feel small. The combination of Handler's power and fame and his habitual joking about sex reveals consistent conduct that has had a harmful impact on multiple female children's writers and children's librarians. What's more, in an industry where most creators are functionally freelancers who rely on networking and gatekeepers, Handler's behavior should be understood as workplace sexual harassment. This is not the first time Handler has been accused of using derogatory humor in inappropriate ways. In 2014, he infamously made a racist joke at the expense of author Jacqueline Woodson, the first African-American woman to win a National Book Award for young people's literature. He apologized, but the new allegations suggest a pattern. Meanwhile, Wesleyan University has just announced that Handler, an alumnus, will be their commencement speaker and receive an honorary degree. Among other recipients this year, anti-workplace harassment advocate Anita Hill. The world of children's literature is, as the New York Times puts it, having its own. In February, she published her findings, based on over 90 responses to her survey, plus additional emails and direct messages. In her essay, she documents patterns of unwanted touching, inappropriate sexual comments in the workplace and other professional spaces, especially conferences and festivals, coercion, psychological abuse, physical assault, and suggestions of exchanging sex for professional advancement. Ursu writes that when men treat their would-be colleagues as sexual objects, it can be devastating. We live in a society centered around powerful men, and thus when a powerful man sees you for who you are, you feel validated, and then they pull the rug out from under you, she writes. He sees you as an object, thus you feel like an object. And ashamed for ever thinking you were something else in the first place. Ursu's findings, all delivered anonymously, launched a broad period of introspection within the industry. People began to name their abusers, including major authors and figures in publishing. For example, James Dashner, author of the Maze Runner series, was dropped by his agent and publisher following credible allegations of abusing his power over others. Jay Asher, the author of 13 Reasons Why, was expelled from the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators for violating their anti-harassment code of conduct. In response to these and other revelations, author Gwenda Bond invited people in the industry to sign a pledge on her website that they would not attend any book events lacking, or failing to enforce, a specific anti-harassment plan. Hundreds of people quickly signed on, including, within a few hours, Daniel Handler. That's when Messner posted her comment, *No. Other women soon joined in. Roseanne Perry, an author, remembers Handler making a crass joke at her expense during a 2014 event at Oregon Literary Arts. A teenager stepped up to tell Handler to knock it off, and so he made a joke at her expense too, then sauntered off without acknowledgement or apology. Allie Jane Bruce, a children's librarian who has hosted many author and illustrator events, recalls being made uncomfortable when Handler joked about having only one testicle in the context of his Uniball pen, in front of second, third, and fourth graders. In her comment, she writes, "It was way over the line, and made me feel smaller." Bruce has declined to provide more details, but multiple people pointed me to her thread on Twitter about how Handler is capable of invoking sophisticated feminist rhetoric when he so chooses. In the thread, Bruce was commenting on a chat about how to talk about sex, featuring Handler and Sherman Alexie, another children's author. Alexie has been accused of sexual abuse by at least 5 women. Bruce shared the interview and tweeted, "What you will hear, if you listen, is 2 cis men who speak the language of liberalism, progressivism, and feminism perfectly and are capitalizing on it. Using it to promote themselves and their books." Angie Monfreddy, a youth services librarian, remembers seeing Handler at the 2011 American Library Association conference in New Orleans. He was surrounded by other important people in the industry, and Manfredi says she was the only one of her peers brave